Welcome to the Biz Gone Social Podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social Podcast, and I am so glad to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I'm so stoked today to have Steve Anderson with me. Welcome, Steve.
Lorraine, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
So tell me a little bit about what you do and who you serve.
So I have kind of two things. My career has been in the insurance business, and I currently run a company that provides advice to independent insurance agents on technology, what to use, how to use it, how to maximize their benefit from it. So that's one part of me. The other part of me is I wrote and published a book called the Bezos letters, where I analyze the letters to shareholders that Jeff Bezos wrote starting in 1997. And that book has seen some success, I guess I'll say that, surprisingly to me, frankly.
So Bezos is known as the master of risk.
That's what I call him. Yep.
How do you know how do you know if you're taking on too much or not enough when it comes to risk?
You know, that was really the core idea that started me researching companies, because I think, as we can agree, technology continues to change rapidly. And 10, 20, 30 years ago, businesses had the luxury of waiting a while. Something new came out. They could kind of, I don't know if this is going to be a thing or not. I still remember in the late 90s, the question was the internet. I don't understand how that's going to be something. Well, we know today it's huge. So again, coming from the insurance industry, the question I started asking is, the biggest risk businesses take is not taking enough risk. And that started me on a journey of researching companies that had been very successful at one point and are no longer here, literally, are gone. And companies that are still here and continue to be successful. What's the difference? And that's where I came across Amazon, the letters to shareholders that Bezos wrote. And it really struck me that he understood early on that risk-taking is an important aspect of business growth. So back to your question, how do you know if what's too much or what's not enough? It's actually hard on one hand and easy on another. And so let me try to explain that a little bit. Hard because, again, if you're a new business, startup, something like that, you're taking a risk just by starting something new. And the question then becomes, what can you do to protect the downside of that risk? So maybe it's raising funds. Maybe it's going small. Maybe, for an individual with an idea, it's starting a side business first before they leave their main business. In fact, had dinner with somebody literally this last weekend, and he was considering starting his own business and has a family and all those kinds of pressures. And, part of our conversation was, why don't you start and see if there's a real market there first before you kind of bet everything on the unknown? So that's what I call protecting the downside. And again, Amazon has tools they use that helps them in that process. And so, the book talks about 14 principles that I believe Amazon used to grow. Well, one of those, in fact, the first principle is what I call encourage successful failure. And so typically businesses, especially when they get bigger, are afraid of taking risk and trying something because it may fail. And here's where Amazon thought process is very different. They actually encourage their employees to experiment. And Bezos talks about that a lot. And here's what he said. He said, an experiment, if it's a true experiment, you're going to fail. Because if you know you're not going to fail, it's not an experiment. But he says a lot of small experiments can lead you to finding that next big thing. And so, again, for Amazon early on with books, when nobody knew you could sell books over the internet, right? Back in the 90s. And then Amazon Web Services, cloud computing, and then the Kindle, and then Amazon Prime. I mean, all of these things they did, they experimented first to figure out what would work and what wouldn't work. And so that's any business owner. And again, I always want to remind people listening, Bezos started in his garage selling books, packing them in packages, taking them to the post office. People tend to forget that now that it's a very successful $1 trillion+ company. And they started just like every other small business started.
Yeah, he has a lot of interesting things that he did with his business. And one of the things that I think is so amazing is that I can order something today and get it tomorrow. But he's really, he's very customer oriented. And I was wondering what you think, or, why do you think it's crucial for you to become customer obsessed business and not just a customer focused business? What's important?
Yeah. And again, every business knows customers are important, but it really comes down to how important do you really think they are? And one of the things that Bezos actually wrote about in his very first letter in 1997 was, we will focus on obsessing over customers. And I always have thought that word choice was interesting, obsession, because it really is kind of over the top, and can have a negative context, right? I mean, sometimes obsession can go too far. But with customers, what he said was, we want to know our customers so intimately that we understand their wants, needs, and desires so we can invent on their behalf. And that's different than customer focus, customer service, right? Customer journey. But it's really getting into the customer's boots and then seeing where their pain points are and inventing solutions to some of those pain points. And again, the getting a package tomorrow or sometimes today. I ordered some batteries I needed, right? Came that afternoon. And again, you kind of, and you kind of go, wow. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And so Amazon has 3 customer pillars that they focus on. One is wide selection. So from books, and Bezos always knew he was going to expand. It just took some time, but now it's, the everything store. You can find just about anything on the Amazon site. 2 is low prices. And I would say not always the lowest, but you can pretty much be confident it's a low and a good price. And 3 is fast delivery. So from the very beginning, delivery was obviously a big thing, and people were not used to waiting, right, a couple of days or maybe a week to get something shipped to them that they bought online. And a lot of people abandoned the shopping process when they saw how much it was going to cost to ship it, which kind of overshadowed the savings they might have had in buying online. But again, that's where solving the customer problem of, I don't want to pay shipping, Amazon Prime came. Subscription started at $79 a year, and they would get free 2-day shipping. And then that's expanded, from there. But I think those are some examples of how focusing on the customer allows you to continue to experiment, invent, and then innovate what the customer experience looks like.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, honestly, it's like, I always say, well, he sells too much stuff from China. I'm going to really stop, I'm going to boycott it. But it's like, then I need something right away. And it's like, and I don't have time to go to the store. It's like,
right.
Oh, I got to order something from Amazon. But, it's interesting is how, I mean, a lot of people out there will say that, low prices aren't necessarily a sign of a good business, especially like kind of in a service business that I'm in. It's like, I don't want to sell myself short. Now he could have low prices because he can get stuff in such bulk and quantity that
right.
It's, but how does like a successful company that maybe has product, how do they, implement some of these pillars into their business?
So here's what I think. Low prices is a model for certain businesses. Amazon, Walmart immediately come to mind. Target probably, but Target's done a little bit different in terms of retail, right? Because now they have better quality. They're known, for better quality. Walmart's certainly known and still known for everyday low prices, and they have worked and still work very hard to keep their prices very low. And in fact, there's been a real interesting competition between Amazon and Walmart over the years and how they go about doing that. But that doesn't mean that every business, low prices is what they need to do. So again, I would say in your business, what are your customer pillars? Is it higher prices? Is it more value? Is it a customized experience that justify a higher price? But part of what you need to do is understand that and figure out what it is that you do or can offer to have a higher price, higher margins, and then deliver on that promise to your customers. So while Amazon low prices, that's not necessarily what every business should do.
Yeah,
there are a lot of business. Look at luxury stuff, right? They charge high prices, and the value people perceive they get justifies that higher price for whatever reason, exclusivity, right? All those kinds of things. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I was just reading some book. I can't even think of the name of it. It was talking about pillars, and they were talking about you're either one of these. If you're one of these, you'll be able to target your audience a lot better. And one, of course, was low prices. One was, of course, quality, value, and the other one was convenience. Because it's interesting. Like if you think of McDonald's, for instance, McDonald's is convenience, but it's not necessarily low price.
And it's not necessarily high quality.
True. I didn't say that. I would say their convenience, totally convenience.
But that, I was going to say convenience, fast. Yep.
But as far as low price, not really. And seriously, I remember once going to like a nutrition seminar, and they were saying that if you're going to buy a hamburger and you're going to use the calories to expend on a hamburger, make sure it's a good hamburger. Anyways,
exactly.
I'm very interested in something else you mentioned. As I was reading your, biography and a few things about your Bezos book, and Amazon always comes to mind when I'm thinking of somebody who's very successful. But you talk about this flywheel, and the question here is like, why the flywheel is Amazon's secret growth weapon? What is actually the flywheel?
Yeah. So the concept of the flywheel, at least in business, comes from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And chapter 8 is called The Flywheel and the Doom Loop. And again, if you're a student of business, likely you have the book on your shelf. Actually, I think it's well worth going. It's chapter 8 in that book. And that book was published in the fall of 2001. The story is that Bezos invited Jim Collins to an offsite senior leadership retreat, and he spent one day talking about the flywheel and how important that was for a business. And actually, that leadership team came out of that day with a sketch of their flywheel.
Wow.
And at the center of that, again, for Amazon's flywheel, at the center is growth. You know, late 90s, early 2000s, they were looking to grow fast because Bezos felt very strongly that, you know, like the Wild West and the land rush, the first people to get in there, get market share, would have long-term benefits from that. So growth was key. And what the items that push the flywheel, now again, think of the flywheel, typically big, heavy metal wheel. Now it can drive machinery and do things like that. It takes a lot of effort to get it going. But once you get it going and you keep those inputs going, then it's easier and easier to, in their case, grow. So some of the inputs on their flywheel were the website and a customer-focused experience. When I ask people why they shop on Amazon, almost a lot of the response is because it's so easy. And think about how personalized Amazon is. When you log in, you are seeing your individual version of the website. So and they spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort making it easy. In fact, they were the first to store your information, including credit card information, online, so you didn't have to enter it every time. It was so revolutionary that they actually got a patent on the one-click process.
Wow.
And Apple licensed it. I mean, so a lot of it, but that's an example back to customer obsession, but also making it easy. And so that easiness led to more people coming to the website and those current customers talking about it. So word of mouth. That led to, you already mentioned this, a greater ability, because they were selling more, to get better pricing from manufacturers because they were buying so much. That led to people coming back to the website. And so then they added, early 2000s, the marketplace. So third-party sellers being able to sell on the Amazon site. And a long story there we won't get into right now, but those third-party sellers bring more customers in because there's a wider selection and, again, lower pricing. So that's the flywheel for Amazon. Now, every business isn't going to have growth as the center of their flywheel, right? It could be something else. In fact, Jim Collins published what he called a monograph, I think 2 years ago now, going into more depth on the flywheel and giving more examples. And the one that's stuck with me is a elementary school principal who wanted to improve their students' test scores. And what she realized is the center for her in the school to improve student score was to improve the quality of the teachers. The quality of the teachers more directly impacted the quality of the students' education and their scores. So she spent her flywheel focusing on recruiting, training, teachers, and the result was a significant increase in student scores. So it's, again, don't think of it just in Amazon's terms, but think of it in your own business. What are some of the key things you can do in your business to focus on to let it grow, right, appropriately? But it's not going to be the same things Amazon does.
Yeah. One thing I love about Amazon too is that, and I'm certain that I've bought some things because of this. They'll say, like, because you bought this, you may like this. And it gets me every time, because a lot of the times when they do that, it's like, oh, I do need that, and it's kind of funny. I feel like guilty, like, oh, I'm getting suckered into buying this, but they're so good at what they do. They just have come up with so many great things, the way they do business. You're right. The ease of their site, and it makes it so easy. I love it. But
well, I was going to say one of my principles is make complexity simple. And that literally principle came from when Amazon bought PillPack, a startup pharmacy. And I was listening in my car to an NPR, interview with one of the CEOs of one of the drugstore chains. I don't remember which one. And he was saying, well, I'm not worried about Amazon getting into the pharmacy business because it's more complicated than they realize. And I literally said out loud to myself, that's what Amazon does, is they make complexity simple. And so again, these principles are applicable to any business depending on how you look at it and how you apply it.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm going to switch gears. This is the
Okay.
part of the show where we get a little real. But what do you love the most about being in business for yourself?
Freedom.
Nice.
Freedom of time, freedom of interests, being able to take my granddaughter to school in the morning if needed. I mean, I know a lot of business owners, but maybe get too involved. I have for a long time had a mindset of working on my business, not in my business, so that I don't have to be here for it to run. And that allows me more freedom and, frankly, time off, which I think is more important than most business owners realize, because time away actually creates more space for creativity and invention and new ideas, and versus being so tired at the end of the day because you're doing everything. And again, when you first start out, harder to do, no question, but having that mindset of how can I create a business that can run without me being there every day, every hour.
Absolutely. So many good points, especially about not working 24/7 on your business. So you are leaving that space to be creative. I love that. So, a lot of people think it's really cool when you own a business, and, they see it as being very glamorous. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you have in running a business in today's world?
Several things come to mind. I think people, for me, is a challenge. Now, for some people, that's easy, and I've had to fire people, trying to find people and pick one that has, find somebody who's going to fit well. We're in the process of interviewing, and part of, again, working on your business is I've got a couple other team members that are doing kind of the primary interview. I'll do a final one kind of to do a check, but I think that's hard. I think the other thing that's hard for me in business is the financial part of that. So I can do it. It is not a love of mine, and that can be a problem, right? So not keeping track of metrics, not keeping track of income and expenses, not keeping track of and understanding kind of what's going on with that. So that's a difficult part for me. And again, fortunately, I've got people around me that I have that are good at that and can do that. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point is, if it's not something that you're good at, make sure that you hire somebody or you ask somebody that's good
Get
at
a good accountant or a good bookkeeper,
Yeah.
Something. I think, again, realize what you're good at and bring people around to support you what you're not. So I'm really good at creativity, ideas, writing, coming up with new things, improving processes. I'm not good at finances and doing bookkeeping. So, and I think maybe that's especially early on for someone new, that's really hard. They think they have to be the best at everything. And if they bring in other people, that's a weakness. Well, yeah, it is. And if you're not good at it, you're not going to like it. You're not going to do it well. Bring in somebody who can and free you up, back to that freedom, free you up for really that uniqueness that you bring to the business.
Yeah. What would be one piece of advice for a business owner out there that, either a couple different people here, some people that are just starting out. So it would be a universal piece of advice. Some people that are, seasoned business owners, and some people that are thinking of starting their own business. What would be one piece of universal advice that you could give them that would help them move forward?
I probably have a couple pieces. So first is, if you're thinking of starting a business, make sure you understand as much as possible what you're good at and what you're not good at. A lot of times I see people who are really technically proficient, but not business aware. I want to say savvy maybe, but not business aware. So they can do the work and probably really well, but that's not a sustainable business because you only have so many hours in the day. Having a business is, how can I bring in other resources and grow? And again, I never wanted to be a huge business. That was never my goal. And so understand that and then create that business around you. I want to say for a more seasoned business owner, I think a couple things come to mind. One is be wary of creating bureaucracy, meaning as a business grows, gets more people, there is a tendency to create layers of management. And too often that slows down growth because it slows down ideas. And again, I'm thinking of a couple principles in the book and how Amazon used some of those to grow faster and not allow. And again, I can point to many different companies that grew, but their growth slowed down. And one of the things that happens is once you start growing, you start protecting what got you there, not looking at what's next. Right. So I think there's a couple of things there for a more established business owner who is looking to grow.
Absolutely. And actually, all the people that are listening to this could use those three pieces of advice. So thank you for that. If somebody resonated with you today, how would they get in touch with you? Is there a gift you'd like to give?
So yes. So a couple things. One is the website for the book is thebezosletters.com. And there's some more resources and information there. You can connect with me. Social, my primary platform is LinkedIn. And so I actually am fairly easy to find. I'm a top voice on LinkedIn. You'll probably see more insurance related stuff there, and book stuff. They're kind of combined together. And then I would love to provide your listeners with a link that will be in the show notes to allow them to download a Kindle copy of my book. And it's a full book, not just an excerpt, so that you can read through these principles and see for yourself what might resonate with you in your own business. I will ask one favor. If you download it and you do read it, leave a review. And leave an honest review. I hope it's 5 stars, but sometimes it doesn't resonate with everybody. But do that on Amazon. That would be great.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for being a guest today. I learned so much from you, and it was really interesting talking about Amazon. I haven't ever done that on one of my shows, so that's awesome. And to everyone out there, until next week, this is the Biz Gone Social Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it today. Bye now.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social Podcast. Find us on Instagram at BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.